Hey, what's up guys? So we're here to showcase off a new trading card game called Domain. I'm going to go ahead and talk a little bit about it. But first off, this is in early access, so keep in mind everything is of course subject to change. But I also want to thank Attack for sponsoring this video to showcase off this new trading card game with a super deep and creative tactics by the board play, which is actually pretty interesting. So let's go ahead and showcase off how to actually play the game. And if you guys want to play the game yourself, you can go ahead and just visit the link in the description box. You don't have to download it, it's just on a browser. So anyways, I'll basically explain some of the stuff in the game. I also zoomed in on the chat so some of you guys can follow along if you would like to read it. But anyways, let's go ahead and get started. So first off, this is the board over here. And I'll basically explain the stuff without the text, but if you want to go ahead and do the tutorial yourself and read it, feel free to go ahead and do so. But anyways, this game is similar to Duelists of the Roses in the sense where you actually have different cards that you place on the board and then you can move them to actually attack. The goal of this game is to eliminate the other player's king. The king right here in our instance is going to be the Taurus Dragon. And basically there's going to be two kings, obviously one is yours, one is your opponent's, and your goal is to take them out. If you take them out, you win the game. Now, if I mouse over the card, you'll see that there's these little teal squares that pop up if I mouse over that card, and that indicates where I can actually move this card. So the name of this card is the Taurus Dragon. It has an attack of 25, a cost of 5, and the move is the jump, and the HP is 35. So how it works when you attack in this game, if I was to attack another Taurus Dragon, they don't actually battle. Who's ever attacking just gets to attack, the other person does not get to also attack back, unlike other card games. But what that means is that basically if I was to attack another Taurus Dragon, their HP would be reduced by 25, so then they would have 10 HP, but mine would be unaffected, as in like since I'm the attacker, they're not going to attack back. You'll see that there also is a thing that says cost. It says 5. Over in the upper right hand corner, you'll see that there's this thing called points. It's not like a mana system like you would have in other card games where you slowly start building up mana. You can build up mana in different ways in this game, but you can still only place one card per turn, which is kind of refreshing because I'm sure a lot of you guys have been talking about as far as Yu-Gi-Oh! Like people just do too much in one turn. And with this game, you can only play one card per turn, so it adds this build-up to the game. Now, in this instance, it's just going to tell us to go ahead and move, so we can move wherever we want. But again, because this card has the ability to have a jump move, I can jump an additional square. But I can't move, let's say right here. That's just the way that the card works. It has to go in those areas. Now you'll see that there's a card over here in our hand called the Skeleton Wart. It wants us to then summon this card. Also, going back to the whole cost thing, the king is automatically placed on the board, and you get to actually select which card is your king, which we'll get into later with the whole deck building. But anyways, it says play from hand, a card is placed in your hand in the top left. You can play it. But you can see that this card over here, if I mouse over it, the cost is 0. Regardless of how many points you have, you can still only play one card. But you can see this one has a move of single and its attack is 9, so it just wants us to summon the card. Now in order for us to summon the card, it has to be placed to an adjacent square next to your king. But there's a bonus on this card. If you guys see over on the left side, it says Wasteland, which means that it will get a bonus of 5 extra attack if it's actually battling on Wasteland. So we're going to go ahead and summon it. We can place it on Wasteland. But I want to mention also, it's when you are attacking, that square that you're attacking on needs to be Wasteland, not the square that you're currently on, if that makes sense. So I would need to attack something that would be over here on this square that I'm currently moused over, not the square that I'm currently on. So anyways, it's telling us to hit escape to continue. So again, it's basically explaining the summon mechanic right now, that you have to summon your card next to your king. There's also this thing called Astral, which I will mention later on, but that basically lets you go to a very specific zone if the card has that ability. But anyways, it says attacks. To attack, you can drag one of your card onto the other target. So it says attack the fire demon with the skeleton. The damage dealt is the attack of the skeleton. So going back to what I was mentioning before, we do have that bonus of Wasteland. We're going to go ahead and attack. You see the attack is 9. Go ahead and attack. Now, certain cards can have different effects, and we'll get more into that later. I don't want to complicate things, but there are different zones that you can be on that will give you extra defense. They can give you other stats, but it says if a card attacks without lowering its target's HP to 0, the card takes the last square in its movement path before the target and attack with the dragon. So this card over here has only 6 HP left. And because this card attacks, well, the movement of the card is a jump, it's going to actually place itself on top of that card because the card is now eliminated. So now I can take this square. And we're going to go ahead and hit escape to continue. And then there's other abilities that give you unique advantages. For example, this card over here called the Man-Eater has Shoot, which has an attack of 7. It also can still move, but we're going to go ahead and use its ability. So if I mouse over, you'll see that there's an ability called Shoot, and I'm able to actually do a ranged attack on my opponent here. So we're going to go ahead and continue on. And it says some effects are triggered by events rather than the player's action. The Soul Collector card will give you 3 points when another card dies. Attack the skeleton with your dragon. Now, this is more of a mechanic that is more complex, and you can actually attack your own cards or destroy your own cards. And the reason why you would do that is to build up points. Points will let you then summon more powerful cards. But to sum it up over here, the Soul Collector card will give you 3 points when another card dies. Attack the skeleton with your dragon. So we're going to go ahead and do that. So we'll attack the skeleton with the dragon, go ahead and eliminate it, and now we'll have 3 points. This card has a cost of 3, and you can see the move is diagonal, but we're really here just to basically summon the card again. You got to summon the card in an adjacent square next to your king. And there we go. And we're going to go ahead and continue on. It says terrains impact the battle stats and card health. Attack the fire demon with your skeleton. So we're going to go ahead and attack. Over here you can see we'll do only 1 damage. It says notice the attack did 5 extra damage because of the wasteland terrain. Terrains boost the attack for 5 with the card with the right bonuses, except for Oasis, which will give you 1 HP back per turn, and Crystal, which gives you +5 defense. So that would be the reason why you would want to move onto certain squares. Obviously, not every map is the same, so that can affect how you play, and that can actually add another level of depth to this card game versus other card games, which is more like static, like you don't actually move, which is a mechanic that I actually really do enjoy. So we'll go ahead and continue on over here. And it also says that some cards have continuous effects that activate each turn. The Garden will give you a point each turn change. And if I mouse over the Ephemeral Garden over here, you can see that under its continuous effect, it says get points description every time the turn ends. Basically, you will get 1 point. Again, over in the top right, you'll see how many points we have. And if I go to end turn, we'll basically gain a point. So what you can do, and what you ideally want to do if you happen to open up with the Ephemeral Gardens, is to throw them out early game if you want to try to build up to get more powerful monsters. Obviously, you can build a deck with really low cost, or even just making them all 0, minus your king, because most of the time you do want your king to be a little bit stronger. Like, you could get a very weak king, because you get to select what you have as your king, but I wouldn't really advise that to go for like a very low one, unless you really know what you're doing and you're going for some other type of build. But anyways, yeah, you can see it just gives you the extra point, and once you eliminate the other player's king, you actually win the game. Now, you can play the game several different ways. You can sign up. I recommend signing up if you want to actually, keep your cards, and you will acquire more cards as you go on, as you will be able to purchase more cards by just winning games. But there's a lot of other ways to play, so let's go ahead and jump into that. So after you create an account, you will have the option to actually select one of the starter decks, that being the Bog, Flame, and Beyond. Now, I do want to mention a really important thing is to view the cards in the deck before you actually select it, because obviously you only get to select one. Now, you could play without an account, and you can just try out the decks. That way you can kind of see which one that you like the most. But there's a really important card that I want to mention that is not in Flame. So the Bog or Beyond both have this card, and that specific card is Ephemeral Garden. Now, what this card does is it's a continuous effect, so as soon as you basically place it, each turn you'll grant yourself 1 point. So basically you'll utilize this to summon your more powerful monsters in the game, as usually those will have a much higher cost, as this costs 0. So you basically want to play this like turn 1 and start getting up your points early on to summon your more powerful monsters. But I also wanted to talk a little bit about some of the more unique monsters in the game. The Illusionist is a really cool card because on play, it says copy description. When played, this card will copy your king's movement and shuffle its position with your kings. It will appear as a king on your opponent's screen. So you can outplay your opponent really hard by perhaps placing the Illusionist, and they might place themselves in positions where they're trying to get rid of your king as soon as possible, but you know that it is an illusionist, but your opponent doesn't, because on their screen, they see it as, of course, the king. So there's a lot of unique mechanics in that aspect. But next up over here, we have the Vampire Unleashed, which is another very unique card over here. And what it can do is it has 17 attack and it's Undying, and it says description. If this card eliminates another Undying is added to its type. The attack damage is also added to this card's health up to its initial HP. So this can be pretty cool because after it destroys a card and it gives it the Undying type, like a Necromancer, it can resurrect the destroyed card, and you can use this to actually take your opponent's card, for example. So that could be a very unique if you are interested and perhaps just using your opponent's army against them. That is always something cool to see in a card game. And then also, there are things that do affect the terrain, like for example, Acid Rain over here. It just makes it so it does 10 damage to all cards on waste terrain. So basically, you can position yourself to maybe force your opponent to where they can only place other cards on zones that would be waste terrain, or maybe you want to utilize that for yourself and maybe destroy your own cards, then you can combo with other things, because there are more extensive combos in this game. Alright, so I also want to show you guys a really interesting mechanic. So in this game, I did mention that you have to summon your creatures next to your king. Now in this instance over here, my opponent has blocked me in, alright? So I can't actually do anything at this point, because I can't summon. But because I have this astral type monster, this allows me to go towards any one of the astral fissures. So that lets me kind of move. But in addition to that, there are other cards that let me warp into certain areas, which is another card that has an ability to move where your card would be with the king. But in this instance, I can't even put anything down. My option at this point is just to attack my opponent's monsters, or at this point I couldn't even summon anything. So what I would do is I have the ability to utilize these astral fissures, and this can be yours or your opponent's, which really adds another layer of depth to this game. So if I want to get out of here, bam, I'm out of there, and I can go ahead and start summoning more of my things right next to my king. So at this point, you guys can see that you can open up these strategies to where maybe you want to swarm your opponent. Now, this is only because this card has this ability. If this card didn't have this ability, I would probably be in a very bad situation. So there's a lot more depth to this game than just what you guys saw. But there's a lot of stuff to check out. So I want you guys to go ahead and try out the game for yourself and tell me what you think about it down below. And if you have any suggestions for this game, I would love to hear them, as I think that this game is pretty unique. But anyways, guys, hopefully you guys enjoyed the vid. If you did, drop a like on it. And if you're new to the channel, hit the subscribe button if you want to see more card gaming content. Peace.